Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today, we'll talk about Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2's brand new update, patch 10.1. This hotfix has landed with a bunch of gameplay changes, weapon tweaks, balance adjustments, bug fixes, and even some quality of life improvements that are worth taking the time to unpack. And I don't want this to feel like just a quick rundown of patch notes. I want it to feel like you and I are having a chat about what all of this actually means for how you play the game, whether you're smashing through Tyranids in PvE, clashing with other Astartes in PvP, or just customizing your armor to look like the Emperor's chosen warrior. So let's just ease into it and go through things slowly, because there's actually a lot here, and some of it is more impactful than it might look at first glance. Now, one of the first things people noticed is the changes to melee weapons, and that's huge because melee is such a core part of the Space Marine fantasy. There's something about running straight into a swarm of Xenos, chainsword roaring, or axe glowing, and just carving through that makes this game special. Update 10.1 puts a particular spotlight on the power axe, which for a lot of players felt kind of underwhelming compared to other options. The devs clearly listened because they've rearranged the perks a little bit and also buffed the weapon in a way that should make it feel much more satisfying to use. Specifically, the slash momentum and discharge perks swapped places, which might not sound huge on paper, but it changes how you plan your progression with the weapon and how soon you get access to certain benefits. Even more importantly, the whirlwind attack for the power axe now has a wider swing and deals 50% more damage. That's massive, because whirlwind is one of those moves you rely on when you're surrounded. And previously, it sometimes felt like you weren't hitting enough enemies or dealing enough damage to clear the space around you. On top of that, the power step attack damage has been increased by 66%. That's a big number, and it means that when you commit to that heavy lunge forward, you're actually rewarded with a serious impact. All of these changes together make the power axe feel closer to what players expect, a weapon that trades a bit of speed for devastating force. But that's not the only melee weapon getting attention. The combat knife, particularly the heroic combat knife version called the Power Gladius, also saw some tuning. Before this update, its bonus damage on a perfect dodge wasn't all that impressive. Now though, the bonus has been bumped up to 120%. Think about that. If you manage to pull off that perfect dodge, which already feels amazing when you time it right, you're rewarded with an attack that more than doubles its usual damage. The only quirk here is that the description text in the game still says it applies only to light attacks, but in reality, it boosts all attacks. So it's stronger than it looks if you're reading it in the menu, and that's one of those little things that can make a difference in how people choose their loadouts. Meanwhile, the Bulwark players who love the shield playstyle got a bit of a correction. The shield rush attack could previously stun lock Terminus enemies, which was kind of breaking the intended challenge of those fights. With this update, that interaction has been removed, meaning you can't just endlessly keep those enemies locked down anymore. It's probably frustrating for some people who enjoyed cheesing fights that way, but in the bigger picture, it makes sense. Balance is important, and fights should feel challenging but fair. Stratagems also got some love in this update. If you're someone who logs in and plays these regularly, you know how important rewards are for progression. The devs heard feedback that the payout felt too stingy, so they boosted it. Now, normal difficulty daily stratagems reward 10 accolades, while hard difficulty rewards 15. That's a noticeable improvement, and it makes the time you invest feel more worthwhile. They also tweaked one of the battlefield conditions called suboptimal state, which used to hit you with a 75% health penalty. That was brutal and honestly made some runs feel almost impossible unless you were running with an extremely coordinated squad. Now they've reduced that penalty down to 66%. Still harsh, still something you have to adapt to, but not quite as punishing as before. It's a good middle ground between maintaining difficulty and avoiding outright frustration. Switching gears to PvP, the Multi-Melta received some changes that aim to refine how it feels. This weapon has always had the potential to feel overwhelming in the right hands, but also awkward in terms of how its firing rhythm worked. After the update, the game now enforces a proper interval between shots when transitioning from different stances, which prevents you from cheesing the fire rate by swapping positions. At the same time, though, they actually increased the hip fire rate from 35 rounds per minute to 50. That means the gun is a little snappier when you're firing from the hip, and in PvP situations where quick reactions matter, that's going to feel really good. So it's this balance of clamping down on unintended exploits while still making sure the weapon feels responsive. Customization also got a bit of a boost. You'll notice a bunch of small fixes across armor sets, but the standout here is that the Mark VIII Arid helmet without decorations is finally available for purchase. A lot of players wanted the clean version for a while, and now you can grab it. They also confirmed that the Mark 7 version without decorations is coming a bit later. So if you're waiting on that, hang tight. Another important fix is with the Ultramarines Champion armor parts, which are now properly gated behind the Champion Pack DLC. Before, some players could access pieces they technically shouldn't have been able to, and that's been corrected. Plus, there's a mission fix in Operation Vortex, where the armor data reward for killing the Vortex Beast is now actually granted as intended. It's always annoying when you put in the effort and the reward doesn't drop, so that's a nice quality of life improvement. Now, when it comes to general bug fixes, there are quite a few that stand out. The Trigon Prime boss, for example, had this hilarious but frustrating bug where it would leave the boss arena in Stratagem mode and go attack Cadians instead. That's been fixed, so now it'll stay where it belongs and focus on you. Another fix targeted the Emperor's Vengeance perk for the tactical class, which wasn't properly restoring Melta charges for the heroic bolt rifle version, the Combat Melta. That perk should now function as described. Stratagems themselves are also more reliable, since you can now play them offline without them breaking. And then there's a fix for a rare issue in Hellbrute Onslaught mode, where selecting your class could sometimes lead to a black screen. That's the kind of problem that can totally kill your session, so it's great to see it addressed. On top of that, they polished up localization, squashed some crashes, and improved overall stability. None of that is flashy, but it's the kind of behind-the-scenes work that makes the whole game feel smoother. Of course, no patch is perfect, and the devs were upfront about the known issues still lingering. One of the big ones is that in stratagem missions, more than 4 battlefield conditions can sometimes be active at once, even though the menu only shows up to 4. That's not intended, and they're planning another hotfix soon to fix it. Another issue is with the exfiltration mission type, where AI bots sometimes refuse to follow you through the elevator if enemies are still alive in the area. It's a pain, but the workaround right now is to just clear every last enemy before hitting the elevator, and usually that prevents the bug from happening. So when you look at this update as a whole, what's the takeaway? To me, it feels like a patch that really sharpens the edges of Space Marine 2. It doesn't reinvent the game or drop massive new content, but it makes the existing systems more reliable and more rewarding. The buffs to melee weapons like the Power Axe and Combat Knife directly improve how fun combat feels. The Stratagem reward boosts give you more reason to log in daily. The customization updates let you shape your Marine's look in ways that people have been asking for. And the fixes just smooth out those little annoyances that can break immersion. It's the kind of patch that keeps the game healthy and shows that the developers are paying attention to feedback from the community. If you've been maining the Power Axe, you're probably going to feel like your time has finally come because the changes are night and day compared to how it used to feel. If you're more of a PvP player, that multi-melta adjustment might not seem like much at first, but in the heat of a match, you'll definitely notice the difference in how the weapon handles. And if you're someone who's been frustrated with broken rewards or janky bugs like bosses escaping arenas, this update should put a smile on your face. Now here's the fun part. How do these changes affect your personal playstyle? If you're a solo player grinding out missions, the Power Gladius buff might make you think twice about swapping to heavier melee weapons, because suddenly you can dodge, counter, and shred with a precision knife that hits like a truck when used right. If you're the tank type who loves shielding allies, the Bulwark nerf forces you to actually rethink how you engage Terminus enemies rather than just locking them down forever. And if you're a completionist chasing accolades, those extra rewards from stratagems are going to speed up your progress in a way that feels much more satisfying.